Well, all right, y'all. All across the USC, Compton, Watts, Bay to LA, Pomona, California, from valley to valley, we represent that killer Cali. So if you keeping it real on your side of your town, you tune in to Gangsta Chronicles. Ew.
Gangsta Chronicles, we gon' tell you how it goes.
If I lie, my nose will grow like Pinocchio. We gon' tell you the truth and nothing but the truth. Ew.
Gangsta Chronicles, this is not your average show.
You're now tuned into the real MC8, Big James, and Big Steel.
This is strictly from the streets.
Hello.
We represent the James.
What's good, Steel? How you doing, man?
Oh, man, I'm good. Ladies and gentlemen, we have my homeboy, the Professor Melly in here. And you hear us, man, tonight we talking about, man, how drugs, alcohol, and several other vices have pretty much hindered the Black community. You coming from where you come from, man, how do you feel all these things impacted the neighborhood?
I mean, they had a man, it's just a huge impact on our community, you know what I mean? Because during the 80s, man, during the Reagan era, a lot of white people would believe Reagan to be this holy grail type of savior type of white man, right? Mm-hmm. But what Reagan did, he devastated the Black community. Devastated the Black community. You know, so a lot of what happened to us stems from what was done during the Reagan administration. And then when Bill Clinton got it, he didn't help it because he initiated the Anti-Terrorist Act with piggyback the 3 strikes. Bill, you know what I'm saying? So he hit both ways. He hit Fed and he hit state. You know what I mean? And this is during the time that Hillary Clinton was calling us super predators. But all this come full circle when you look at, we don't have no airplanes, we don't have no ships, and we don't own no farms in Peru or in Colombia. So therefore, what happened? How did all this stuff wind up in our communities with our people?
Exactly.
And that goes from the malt liquor, because the old English 800, Arabian Ale, the Coke 45, you go in Beverly Hills, you don't see that in the liquor banks. They call them liquor banks, by the way. They're not liquor stores, they're liquor banks. That's a difference. That's code word.
You're getting some game right now because, you know, I just remember coming up, man, and the combination, man, of malt liquor, all that, because they call it rock gut, the MD 2020 and all that, man, it usually wound up with somebody getting murdered. It usually wound up with somebody getting murdered, and I've seen people make horrible decisions when they were on that thing, man. You know, just talking to different homeboys, man, like, you know, we got the stuff that happened with Rick, this well-known Chronicle, man. They pretty much used the crack proceeds to fund the Contra War.
Absolutely, because I've spoken to Chico Brown is a good friend of mine. You know what I mean? So, and I've had several conversations with him on the subject, and you know, because he's now looking at this snowfall, and he believed that they use that as like a template to show what actually happened, because now you watching snowfall and you seeing all this CIA involvement in this white man. Like he's controlling the whole drug trade, you know what I mean? Because he's doing everything. He's just putting the pieces in place in order to move it.
Exactly, man. And it's a whole play, man, because I've heard all the little theories, man. You know, one of my buddies was telling me, man, that they manufacture crack at the University of Southern California.
I would not be surprised in that. Because, see, what people don't understand, man, these people are very diabolical, man. They created think tanks from way back. And these think tanks sometimes run 10 and 15 and 20 years prior to when it happens. You understand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 15, 20 years ahead of time, huh? So they just spend all that time studying. It's almost like, you know what I feel like the Black community I almost feel like we those lab rats. You know, they have lab rats in there and they experiment on these lab rats before they go to market with a product. It's a lot of social engineering involved. Like, I don't know if you've been paying attention, like even with social media today, you know, you go on social media for an hour, they have you broke down. They pretty much figure out a way to keep you stuck on it.
Yeah. Right. See, there's a man, there's a guy, there's a couple of guys, matter of fact. There's Noam Chomsky. There's I can't think of the guy name that wrote the Committee 300, and the guy named he's over in England, David Icke. If you read any of their literature or you come across any of their writings, they talk about what the government does. But a lot of people don't pick this type of literature up and try to understand what's happening. These are white men that tell the truth on other white boys, you know.
Wow. So
and the books that you get a hold of some of them books, man, they'll blow you away, man.
I would definitely. Do you know the name of some of those titles so we can have the listeners go out there and grab them?
I would definitely look them up for you. It's Dave. I know the author is David Icke, and the other one is well, the Committee 300. I gotta look at. I'm starting to say Robert Greene, but it's not Robert Greene. But the Committee 300 talk about the Bilderbergers, the Rothschilds, the guys down in New York, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, and all these big old families that really control the world. You know what I mean? They in control of the IMF, Intermediary Monetary Fund, which is the world. They fund the World Bank. You know what I mean? All these white men come together each year, which is called the Trilateral Commissions, and they make decisions for the world, not just for the United States, for the world.
So this gets deeper because, you know, one of the things that me and Ada said earlier, man, if you ever notice, these things don't make their way to the suburbs, to the suburban communities, to the orange counties of the world, to all these other places. If you go in their liquor stores, you won't see Old English 800. You won't see St. Ives. You won't see Cisco. You won't see none of that stuff. They just don't carry those products out there. And I've always wondered, man, you know, with our with just the ailments, man, and the ills that we have in our communities, man, drugs and alcohol play a major part in it, man. You know, you get a guy that comes home and he already frustrated and he drinking that alcohol, which is a depressant that's making you even more depressed. And next thing you know, he going to jail for the weekend, or even worse, he don't murder somebody, you know?
Mm-hmm.
He don't even murder, murder somebody.
Once again, coming back to the think tanks, they understand that in human nature, humans have very addictive natures. And if you put the right bait out there and the right lure, they're gonna grab at it. You understand? And not knowing that all the time it was a complete setup. You understand? Mm-hmm. Because it's not coincidental that all these different drinks that you name wind up specifically in the Black and Latino community. You know, they're very specific in what they're doing to us. You know what I mean? Because they have to keep their edge. I think the Europeans make up maybe about 3 or 4% of the world's population. You know what I mean? So in order to stay ahead, they got to constantly come up with things to stay in power.
And so it's a power play.
And that often come at the cost of lives and people. I'm talking about countless of people. You know what I mean? Just like we don't even talk about. Remember when that typhoon tsunami hit? What was that? Indonesia, and they lost about 250,000 people. That happened like what? Maybe 10 years? No, maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah, about 15 years ago.
Yeah, all them people just got wiped out. It's because these people are playing with the global warming and the weather and doing all kind of things that they just basically just experimenting on things and seeing what they can do and what they can get away with.
Yeah, there's a machine, and I'm trying to think of the name of it. I'll find it. Hold on one second. I'll find it. But there's a machine that they use to control the weather. And a lot of people think I'm tripping when I'm talking about that.
Yes.
And I know exactly what you're talking about. Hold on one second. What's the name of that, man? They had one, I know from the 40s to the 70s, they had a project called Project Storm Fury, where they tried to test the limits, but it's a name for this machine. It's a weather modification program. and I don't remember the name of it. If I find it, I promise I'll tell you guys about it. But they have machines now, man, that can control the weather. Because if you ever notice, Haiti got crushed, New Orleans got flooded. You had the stuff in Puerto Rico. If you ever notice, man, these incidents, they have water. They have the same conditions in these other places that are populated and frequented, frequented for travelers. You know what I mean? For the people, the tourists and stuff. You never hear about those things happening over there. But it just so happens.
That's man, I'm so passionate about this stuff. My mind get to running when we get to talking about these things. But watch this, Phil. Watch this for a moment. FDA, right? Food and Drug Administration. How does that work? Why do we got the same people controlling both? Have you ever thought about that?
Well, I've thought about it a lot because, if you look at the opiate epidemic, right? There's an opiate epidemic. We talking about drugs and control, ultimately control, right? They were paying doctors fat bonuses to prescribe these opiates to people, right? Me and you go in, we say we got a headache. I remember, man, I was having back problems when I stopped playing football. The first thing they did, man, was prescribe me a 90-day dose of what's that stuff called?
Oxycodone.
Vicodin, hydrocodone. 90-day supply of hydrocodone. Take 5 pills a day, you know what I mean? Or as needed. And they just was prescribing this stuff, man, like aspirin. Fortunately, I didn't take that stuff like that. I used them for my back pain. But just think about how many people, if you talk to the average heroin addict in the streets nowadays, they were regular people that started off taking prescription medicine and got hooked on it. As soon as the doctor find out, they go to the doctor and tell them, hey, you're hooked. And the doctor discover they hooked. They just cut them off and kick them to the curb, right?
Yes.
And, to buy those pills is expensive. So it's cheaper for them to go buy heroin because now they're addict, right?
Yeah.
And nobody's being held accountable for that. And who does it happen with that?
Absolutely, man. But it's deeper because if the same person is in controlling of your food and the same person controlling of your drugs, at some point you got to consider that they might be putting a lot of this shit in your food. Because they in control of it.
It's getting deep. Hey, Mel, before we go, man, because I know you got some stuff you got to get into. What can we do as a community, man, to curb this shit?
For one, we got to trust one another. And once we start building a trust, we build rapport. And once we build rapport, we come in a responsive. We be responsible in the responsiveness to what our real needs are and what we need to do to save our people, man, because nobody's going to save us but us. You understand?
Exactly, man. And I know you got to, I see you online all the time talking, Mel. Where can the people go find you at, bro?
Man, they can find me at Professor Melly Mel, the Hood Postman. They can find me on IG as the Hood Postman. They can find me on Facebook as Melly Gibson. They can find me on YouTube as Professor Melly Mel, the Hood Postman, and you know that vibe.
And man, I can't wait to get you on the show, man, for a whole episode. And there he is, ladies and gentlemen.
I look forward to that still because there's so much we need to cover. And there's so much that we need to go over, man. And we can't just do it in one setting. We just can't. It's just too much. And there's so much information out there. There's a book out there about a sister named Sahaza Ali called Are You Still a Slave? And when you finish reading the book, at the back of the book, it's got a test to where you take it. And once you finish that test, it'll determine whether you're a slave or not.
Bro, I'm going to have to go get that, man. I'm going to have to order that, man.
Go check that out.
I'm going to have to order that, man. I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate the love and the knowledge, bro.
And I appreciate you, man. Salute.
Salute, bro. I'll talk to you.